In the Golden Hills of rural Oregon, 21-year-old Elise Harrington sat quietly in her wheelchair, staring at the wildflowers that danced just beyond her reach. The daughter of millionaire land developer Charles Harrington, Elise had been unable to walk since the accident 2 years ago that shattered her spine. Doctors had tried everything: surgery, therapy, experimental treatments, but nothing brought movement back to her legs. Though she smiled for her father's sake, Elise had slowly stopped believing in hope. Until one spring morning, when an unexpected voice, rough, gentle, and steady, asked, "Would you let me try?" The voice belonged to Jacob Reed, a third farmer who leased land on the Harrington estate. A quiet man who kept to himself. Jacob was known for his crops, his kindness, and something else, his gift with healing animals. Rumor was he had brought back a dying foal and coaxed a lame dog to walk again. But he wasn't a doctor. Not in the way Elise's father trusted. So when Jacob first offered, Charles scoffed. "She's not a wounded horse," he snapped. But Elise looked Jacob in the eye and said, "What would you do?" He smiled. "Something slower, something kinder." The next day, Jacob arrived at the estate not with machines or charts, but with 2 handmade wooden crutches and a worn canvas bag filled with herbs and oils. "We'll start with breath," he said, "then feel, then motion." He didn't touch her legs. Not at first. He asked her to describe the wind, to count birdsong, to sense the grass moving beneath her chair. It seemed silly, but Elise began to feel something, awareness waking up in her body. "We're not just made of nerves," Jacob said softly. "We're made of stories. Let's rewrite yours." Every afternoon, Jacob sat with her in the shade of the apple trees, massaging her feet with warm oil, talking softly as if her muscles could hear him. "Your legs, remember," he'd whisper, "they're just waiting to be asked again." Slowly, she began to feel the faintest tingles, like butterflies walking across her skin. It scared her more than the numbness. But Jacob never rushed. "Healing doesn't shout," he said, "it listens." Elise had never met anyone like him. Her life had been filled with experts in suits and sterile white coats. Jacob smelled of soil and hope. Word spread among the staff that something strange was happening at the orchard. Elise was smiling more. Her cheeks were brighter. The nurses noticed increased circulation in her legs. Charles remained skeptical, until one evening, he passed by the trees and froze. His daughter's toes twitched, not spasms. A movement, deliberate. Elise looked up and met his eyes. "I felt them," she whispered. Jacob stood behind her, saying nothing, just holding the crutches like they were sacred. That night, Charles didn't sleep. He stayed by Elise's door, listening to her humming for the first time in years. By the second month, Elise could shift her weight. With Jacob beside her, she practiced pressing her feet into the earth. The pain was sharp at first, but it was proof of life. "You okay?" Jacob asked. She nodded through tears. "It hurts, but it's mine." One day, Jacob held the crutches, steady while she stood, just for 3 seconds. Then 5, then 10. Elise wept. "I thought standing was over for me," she said. Jacob shook his head. "It was just paused." Their bond deepened, not romantic, not yet, but sacred, forged in pain and patience. On her 22nd birthday, Elise walked 5 full steps. Charles arranged a private celebration, but Elise refused the crowd. "The only gift I want," she said, "is to thank Jacob." She invited him to dinner for the first time at the big table, not outside with the workers. Jacob arrived, awkward in a borrowed coat, and stunned as Charles raised a toast to him. "You've done what the best doctors couldn't," Charles said. Jacob only smiled and replied, "She did it. I just reminded her how." Elise held his hand longer than needed that night. Something unspoken passed between them. As summer turned to fall, Elise could walk short distances with her crutches and even balance on her own for moments. Jacob began teaching her to work the land, planting herbs, pulling weeds, feeling the rhythm of nature. She laughed again, falling into soil, brushing dirt from her jeans like a badge of honor. "You don't see me as broken," she told him once. "Because you never were," he replied. They spoke little of the accident now. It had stopped being her defining story. In its place bloomed something stronger: resilience, connection, and quiet joy. But not everyone approved. A family friend warned Charles that Jacob was beneath them. "He's just a farmer," they sneered. Charles looked out the window, watching his daughter dance barefoot in the grass, holding Jacob's hands for balance. "He gave her back her life," Charles said. "What did you ever give her?" And with that, the last wall in Charles's heart fell. He invited Jacob to lease more land, even offered to help him expand. Jacob declined politely. "I like my pace," he said. "Like healing, some things grow best slow." One late autumn evening, as the sun poured gold over the orchard, Elise stood on her own. No crutches, no hands, just breath and earth. Jacob was 10 feet away, silently watching, tears in his eyes. "I'm walking," she whispered. Then, louder, "Jacob, I'm walking." He ran to her, not to catch her, but to walk beside her. She laughed through her sobs and hugged him tightly. Thank you, she said into his shoulder. You didn't fix me. You helped me find me. And in that orchard, under orange skies, the impossible became real. Asterisk that winter. Elise and Jacob launched something new together, a foundation for healing retreats, combining physical therapy with farming and mindfulness. Nature heals what machines can't, Elise told reporters. Her story went viral. People came from cities and states away, not just to heal but to believe again. Jacob never stood in the spotlight. He preferred tending the herbs or mending fences. But everyone knew he was the quiet soul behind it all. He found the pieces of me I thought were gone, Elise once said in a speech, and showed me how to plant them back. Asterisk, they never called it love, not right away. But in the way they moved around each other in glances and gestures and silence, it was clear. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was better, rooted, real, and rising. One day, as Elise sat under the same apple tree where it all began, Jacob placed a small carved box in her lap. Inside were seeds: apple, lavender, mint. Want to start our own garden? He asked. She laughed. We already did. Then stood, unassisted, and kissed him for the first time. Asterisk years later. People still talked about the girl who walked again, about the farmer who didn't see a diagnosis, only a chance, about how healing came not from fortune or fame but from faith, dirt, and time. Elise and Jacob built a life that grew like their orchard, steadily, sweetly, quietly. And whenever someone said, "It's impossible," Elise would smile and say, "Then you haven't met Jacob Reed."